welcome to the final installment of CMS News for the 2020-2021 school year. I'm Ms. Kraft.
And I'm Mr. Mahar. You know, the past year certainly has been historic. Whether you've loved it or hated it, in so many ways, this school year has been unlike any other. And it will be a year that future generations will learn about and study in their social studies classes.
So to help us preserve this bit of history in the making, we have decided to take a look back and interview some students and staff on their experiences throughout the past year. During this broadcast, we are going to share with you some interviews that we have conducted and get a little bit of a deeper look inside what our CMS community has felt throughout this pandemic.
Before we get to our interviews, let's take a look back at Ms. Kraft's Pulitzer Prize-winning broadcast from the day that Canandaigua Middle School first started to close due to the pandemic, back on March 17th, 2020.
Hello, we are live outside of Canandaigua Middle School on March 17th, 2020. As you can see, it's a dreary day. I just put away my umbrella. Hopefully I won't need that again. But cars are lined up throughout Granger Street, down almost to 332 and Main Street. Students and parents are trying to pick up assignments that teachers have prepared for working remotely during this closure period. At this point, I've talked with students, I've talked with parents, I've talked with teachers. No one is quite sure of how long this closure will last. However, they hope that it will only be a couple of weeks, maybe extending through this upcoming spring break. We will certainly keep you posted on any emerging details here on CMS News.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft, for that report. Clearly, back in March of 2020, most people did not anticipate what was to come with COVID-19.
They certainly didn't.
Do you remember what you were thinking at the time?
I remember being completely shocked when I found out that school was closing. I was so worried about how I was going to teach my students, how they were going to be able to learn their content, but also just about the safety of everyone in general. Mr. Mahar, what were your thoughts?
I think my thoughts were similar to those of many others. I was thinking that the school would only be closed for a week or two, and was thinking about how challenging it was going to be during that time to continue learning. I definitely was not expecting that it would be over a year before schools would even start to return to normal.
I don't think anyone was. So to learn more about what others were thinking back in the spring of 2020, we interviewed several members of the CMS middle school community. Let's hear what they had to say.
I think I was very nervous at the beginning of the pandemic. I remember not being able to sleep. I remember feeling very anxious and stressed. I was worried going to the grocery store. I was worried anytime anyone in my family left the house. I guess scared is the best way to put it. I was very scared.
My first thoughts when school shut down was that it was only going to be at most 2 weeks.
When this whole thing started and we had to shut down, I was worried that I had to go to summer school or repeat 6th grade.
When the pandemic first hit and we had to shut down, at first I thought a couple things. One, we're about to make history. Something like this hasn't happened in a very long time, and society's so much different now that one could argue nothing like this has ever happened before. It seemed kind of exciting, an opportunity, but I also thought it was going to be short and fairly temporary, and so those feelings wore off quickly. I just can't wait to get back to doing what we do best, being with each other all together, learning and experiencing all the things that schools have to offer.
I was kind of worried, a little bit scared that we would never go back to school and not see our friends again. And it was kind of difficult from going full-time to no school at all for the rest of the year. But that was the beginning of the pandemic.
The beginning of the pandemic, it was largely hard because of the large amount of change that you have to do with learning, because I'm a very visual learner. So it was much harder to adjust to pretty much only having videos and audio to listen to instead of being able to ask questions. So it was a bit harder to adjust at first, but it eventually just sort of happened.
Beginning of the pandemic, I thought the school year was going to be really hard.
Thoughts and feelings when the school first shut down is I didn't like it. I thought it was gonna be fun and nice. Then I realized it was like hard and difficult because like you don't have like the help you need or anything like that.
It's good coffee.
Such good coffee.
You know, it's really interesting to hear some of those recollections about the start of the pandemic. I don't think anyone was really expecting what came next, not just being forced to learn remotely for a few weeks, but for the remainder of the school year.
And of course, even when schools did reopen this fall, things were very different than anything any of us had ever experienced before.
Yeah, we all became familiar with terms such as Zoom, hybrid, virtual, asynchronous learning. And while new ways of doing things can sometimes be exciting, it can also sometimes be quite challenging.
There's no denying that there have been some challenges during this past year. Let's take a look at some difficulties our CMS community faced.
I think the hardest part of going to school in the pandemic was wearing masks. Masks can be itchy, they irritate your skin, and they can even make it hard to breathe. It'll be great when we can finally ditch masks.
Something that was hard this year was definitely the virtual work on computer and not being able to see all my friends at once.
The difficulties that I've experienced during this pandemic really are based on the lack of interaction with students and adults, my friends, my peers. It's been hard engaging students on the computer. It's been hard even getting them to show their face in their screen.
Some of the school year's difficulties were maybe on some days there was more work in a specific unit than others, and maybe I was overwhelmed with some of that work.
And my biggest difficulty was probably being home 3 days a week and not being able to see my friends made it a little bit harder.
Obviously, a big difficulty was just virtual learning in general, especially at the beginning of the year when something was super new.
Some difficulties for me this year during the pandemic were not being able to see my students all 5 days a week. I felt torn and between the students that were at home that might need my assistance or to respond to an email or message, and working with the students that were right in front of me that might need my help.
You know, although there have definitely been some challenges over the past year, there have also been some good positive things that have come out of our pandemic experience.
So let's hear about some of the positive experiences that some of our students and staff members have encountered throughout the pandemic.
Something that was positive about this school year was just seeing how resilient students are. You know, they made the most of a really new and difficult at times situation.
Something positive about this year that I liked was that we got to sleep in an extra 3 days of the week because I love sleeping.
One of the positives when it comes to chorus and music was that we got to really dive into more of like music theory. We got to play boomwhackers a lot, which 7th and 8th grade chorus has never done before, so that was cool. And then we also played a lot of ukulele. And we just started learning keyboard. So it was nice to be able to try new things in music. And
something positive that came out of this year was we started doing fitness walks, and each class started with a fitness walk that was about 10 or 12 minutes long, and I was able to walk with the students and talk with them while we did the walks, and I got to know them so well. It was so much fun. We're definitely going to keep those fitness walks.
Something that was positive about this year was we were able to be home in a comfortable environment and with our family.
Well, with this school year coming to an end, many of us are starting to look ahead to the fall. I know that I am looking forward to being able to work with many more students and hopefully see many more people in the building every day. Hopefully I can see all of your full faces. Mr. Mahar, what are you looking forward to?
What I'm really looking forward to and what I'm really hoping for is that things can all get back to normal. Like being in school 5 days a week, being able to see students' faces again, and generally just being able to focus on learning and friends and all of the great things about middle school.
With that in mind, let's see what else our CMS community is looking forward to next year.
What I'm looking forward to in the next year is to being able to see new friends, play my sports, and hopefully have to not wear a mask while being at school.
What I'm looking forward to next year is for us to be able to go back to school normally, no mask, no nothing.
Next year. Well, next year is a whole new structure. I'm going to be teaching beginning 5th graders and beginning 4th graders at the same time. So I know that 5th graders tend to learn a little bit faster. We'll see if we can even put on a concert around the winter time. We usually do a Christmas concert because they've already been practicing together. There'll be a brand new group, new to everything, so we'll see what we can do.
One thing I'm looking forward to about next year is hopefully being able to go back to school full time and see all my friends.
I'm looking forward to going back full time next year and being able to do things in class that we weren't able to do this year.
I'm looking forward to next year is getting back actually into the building, hopefully.
Next year I am looking forward to sharing equipment, playing games, creating tournaments, and getting back to some normalcy that we're used to in school.
Next year, I'm really looking forward to doing the school musical and the clubs.
And something I'm looking forward to next year is seeing my teachers and my friends.
We'll be able to walk from class to class because on Zoom, it's just a few clicks and you do next class. But then in school, the bell rings and then you get to walk around and stretch and talk to your friends a little bit before your next class. And I really do miss doing that.
Something I hope for next year is to be in person and doing school.
Next year, I'm really looking forward to getting back to teaching in person and getting back to maybe even eventually seeing all of your faces so they're not covered up in masks, and maybe being able to stand on stage with students one more time and have a concert again. So I think the light's at the end of the tunnel, and I'm really, really looking forward to next year.
And what I'm looking forward next year is science class and hopefully going back 5 days a week.
I would say what I'm looking forward to next year is probably seeing everybody again, maybe a sense of normalcy. That would be nice. And obviously, as you can see from my little sticker here of my coffee cup, I would love for my coffee and my lips to meet again without a mask in between. But it is what it is, and as long as we're all safe, that's what really matters.
When I think about next year, what I'm most looking forward to is being back in the buildings, back in classrooms, attending extracurricular activities, and just forming relationships with staff and students and all the personal pieces that are missing that we had during the pandemic. And I am definitely looking forward to no longer wearing masks. Can't wait for next year.
You know, Ms. Kraft, I'm also looking forward to hopefully some more CMS news reports with maybe some better news in the next year.
I would agree with that, Mr. Mahar. Well, CMS, thank you for watching. This is Ms. Kraft
and Mr. Mahar
signing off for the 2020-2021 school year. Have a great summer.